I admit, I love the tech of electric cars. Soon, just about every manufacturer will have an electric car in the market, and in my prediction, will feel very similar in driving feel.
For the last few years, there's been a lot of discussion about the usable, affordable electric car for everyone. Well, we're in one. The Bolt EV does all of the above. This one, like this, is just over 40 grand, but of course you now have that tax incentive, and that's $7,500 off. So there you go with a car that is roughly $35,000.
The Bolt, not the Volt, but the electric car from Chevy. This car was introduced into the marketplace to compete directly against the Model 3.
The reason we're talking about the Bolt alongside this Model 3 is because both of those cars are chasing the same range as a normal gasoline vehicle, but also is a car that I can afford.
The Model 3 has been a long time in coming. Everybody has been waiting for this car so much. It was 2 weeks from the time this owner got his email notification that he could go ahead and order the car to being delivered. But 2 years ago is when he placed his reservation. When the owner pulls up, it's a bit of a celebrity, and he turns into a Tesla rep at that point. And that's what Tesla is doing. That's the brilliance of this car and this company.
It's funny to be a car guy in a world where the Tesla Model 3 exists, because this is a car that non-car people want to talk about like crazy. People say to me, aren't you excited? The Tesla Model 3's got people talking about cars. It's only got people talking about this car in general. Most people are completely unaware, for example, that the Bolt even exists.
The car you drive every day should be fun, but it has to do the boring stuff too, like commute, be affordable, and haul your groceries.
You can have both, and we'll help you find it. Fun to drive cars and great driving experiences for everyone on Everyday Driver.
Brought to you by Covercraft. The place where electric cars make the most sense is here in the city. I can't get over how just simple and usable and intuitive they've made this car. In fact, they've even set it up in such a way that if you're new to electric cars, you can drive it and it feels exactly like the cars you're used to. It's a Honda Fit, if you will, or a small CUV. It feels exactly like all of those cars. Or if you're a pro at it, you come out of another electric car and you're used to electric cars not operating like other cars. This is ready for that as well. The way they have all these settings is the different ways you choose to use the gear selector.
First of all, I'm in drive. Put it in drive, and it operates like a car that you're used to. It's got that transmission creep even. Or what you can do is
put it down into L, which normally means low gear. Here it means electric, I think. In L mode, you can only have your foot on the accelerator pedal, and just the way you modulate the accelerator pedal, the car will move or stop. If you pull your foot straight off, it clamps down and stops probably faster than you want to if you're used to kind of coasting up to a light.
So I'm driving along, and I've got regenerative braking, obviously, whenever I push on the brakes, but you also have this paddle only on the left side of the steering wheel, and that is on-demand regenerative braking. And yes, we can confirm that the brake lights come on when you pull this paddle here.
You try it once and you will wonder why regenerative braking has not always been done this way. It is really that intuitive. It comes right back to you're riding a bike, you need a brake, you squeeze your hand. The only thing I don't like about this paddle is it takes a bit of getting used to. It's not a progressive paddle.
So you will have to plan things differently. You can't really give it everything and think, all right, I'm going to get more bite out of these brakes. That's just not true.
This is a single motor with a 60 kilowatt battery. And because, of course, it has instant torque, it goes kind of fast. Equivalent of 200 horsepower, about 250 pound-feet of torque.
I think people are surprised to see you dart around them in traffic because you can.
A 0 to 60 of 6.5 is genuinely quick, and the sensation when you first start, honestly, this feels most similar to the tram at Disneyland.
Teslas are marketed and sold as just having ludicrous straight line speed. Is that going to get old? Is the drag race thing going to get old? I think not, actually. And the best part about this is the usability. Like the Bolt, this car just gets away from traffic.
That Bolt feels fast. This is a whole level faster. This is a loaded out Tesla Model 3, which means it has the big battery and the extra speed. You can feel it. There is an amazing surge in this car. It'll do 0 to 60 almost 2 seconds faster than that Bolt. There are 2 acceleration settings on this car. I'm in chill right now. Chill, of course, is, as the name suggests, a whole lot calmer acceleration. In fact, I would say somewhere between the two is where the Bolt lands. It is faster than this Model 3 in chill mode, but it isn't as fast as the Model 3 in standard.
You're just hearing the electronic whine of the motors, that's it. The more I drive this car, the more integrated I become, but now I'm becoming a Tesla acolyte. I want to tell people the different thinking about this car. I want to tell them all about these controls. I want to show them what it's like to have this different mindset. And then I want to beat everybody off the line because I can.
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Whew. That's what electric can do. It's not what Tesla can do, it's what electric can do. Tesla's just harnessed it and made it a thing that they get to brag about, and they're doing a great job. Now, it could be argued that the screen is distracting and there's too much stuff buried in the screen.
This car isn't pretty. I like the proportions and the shape of this, but all I can hear is Billy Idol's Eyes Without a Face song playing in my head whenever I look at the front of this car.
The upturned Pit Viper nose here is a strange additive as Tesla tries to figure out what do we do with a car without a grille. The S is aging very well, and I think it's much more attractive than this. This, of course, beats the Bolt, but that's a low bar. So this is a minimalist cabin. But does minimalism mean luxury? I feel like we started to equate the two as the same. I don't think that's true. A lot of times minimalist design can just be cold. You could describe this interior as stark, because it is. It's all about this screen. Of course, why play with your phone at the light when you can play with this monster screen? So let's go in here to driving, and let's see, let's go standard. Steering mode, I'm gonna stay on sport. I'm also on standard regenerative braking.
Tesla approaches things so differently that any little thing that seems normal and commonplace anytime else suddenly becomes the most amazing thing ever. Like right here, let's go to directing the air vents. Air vents on every other car work brilliantly. This seems like a fussy user experience designer way of approaching that problem.
I do think these vents are genius. And all it is 2 channels of air that fight each other. And the way the air hits each other, that creates an airflow that lands the place you wanted the vents to point. That may be the coolest thing of this entire interior.
By just putting the giant screen in this car, with the Model 3, you're gonna have to relearn to look ahead, because the tendency is just to stare at this thing. The good thing about the visibility here is my line of sight. I mean, here's my eye level right here, but right off the steering wheel is my speed right here.
I am really surprised that this Model 3 doesn't have a heads-up display. It would be actually really helpful for speed. Making this motion is a little bit odd. The truth is, though, you forget about the fact that any of that information's in here. You just drive. Now, it could be argued that the screen is distracting and there's too much stuff buried in the screen. But to Tesla's credit, setting up this car is like setting up your new computer. You're going to spend so much time when you first get it, getting everything set up like you like it. But once you get it set up, 90% of that you're never going to touch again. Anything you change. You want to go in here and you want to do something as simple as adjust my mirrors. That now suddenly is what these buttons do. And you want to adjust the steering wheel. Guess what? The button now is sourced to actually move the steering wheel around. Once you get the car calibrated to what you like, you'll probably never bother most of those settings again.
Even though this car only has 500 miles on it, it feels better built than you will expect. That's the thing that everybody is asking us about, is the build quality. Does it feel good? And the answer is yes.
There seems to be a place where something on this stalk right here is lifting a little earlier than I thought it would. That's not quite flush. That's about the only one I've found on the entire car. All the trim, everything looks pretty well aligned. What's it like at 100,000 miles? What's it like at 50?
I like what Chevy has done with their perception on what an electric car should be. The overall proportions just look like a small SUV, just a small little hatchback wagony thing. And it's the technology that really is setting this car apart. Same thing with the interior here. I'm not convinced about this styrofoam cooler material. I want it to be, of course, environmentally friendly to produce, but it needs to look actually expensive and nice to the touch.
There are actual buttons for the stereo. There's a knob for volume control. That sounds novel, doesn't it? The HVAC controls, the heating and cooling here, looks just like the guy off of Volvo. In fact, it might even be Volvo buttons. Your center screen here gives you plenty of battery information, plenty of range information, and also the normal things you would expect. It's also very readable.
The shapes and the way the graphics are and the overall presentation is a little bit cartoonish. On the other hand, I feel like GM is not taking themselves quite so seriously. The point is, the future doesn't have to be a blank, boring instrument panel that is just dominated by the single screen. Not all buttons are bad.
A lot of times, I'm not real fond of seats from General Motors. These are actually a complete 50-50 mixed bag. The backrest and the support for your back is excellent. It's really, really good. The chair itself is surprisingly narrow. It feels almost like you're sitting on a bar stool with a nice backrest.
I'm actually very comfortable. There's a lot of space in this car. There's a lot of headroom. The seats are really quite good, better than the seats in most base cars. And I'm not doing anything. Look, the car's slowing down completely. It's coming to a full stop.
If you find yourself shopping for an electric city car, handling is not high on your consideration list. I understand that, but handling is still vitally important. I mean, you're gonna have to duck around people in the city, and a car that is wallowy, I find disconcerting.
It's 3,500 pounds, fairly heavy for the size of car that it is, obviously lots of battery weight, but all that weight is down low. So surprisingly, it kind of hunkers down. Obviously, an electric steering rack, it goes where you point it, and that's about it. It's missing everything that we look for in terms of steering feel. But what's fun is, it hides among all the other commuter cars until you put your foot down.
In those I'm going 20 and I now want to be going 30 scenarios, the Bolt's still going to beat pretty much any other traditional car out there.
I'm wondering what the fight was with the engineers to make this somewhat performance-oriented, but still for most people.
The Model 3 handles better than the Bolt for two main reasons. First off, the Bolt is taller. The other thing about it is the fact that this is a rear-wheel drive car. Being rear-wheel drive instantly contributes to this car feeling more luxurious and a little bit better handling than the Bolt. But I also don't think it has handling that really wows you. It's also harsher. I think in a city environment, that Bolt is going to be a better ride. This is surprisingly stiff and harsh in any setting. If you're buying a car for driving around and commuting, I think you're going to want it softer than this.
I don't feel like this car is really comfortable over anything that's less than perfect. It wasn't tuned to have a particular personality. It's parts, and you feel that, and the parts leave me cold. I'm not involved here. I'm along for the ride. There we go. So now I can just talk to you while the car is pretty much driving itself. Again, I'm not doing anything. Look, the car's slowing down completely. It's coming to a full stop. That's lovely and all, but the assumption will be that this car will know and be smart enough in all situations, and unfortunately there have been enough crashes to prove that wrong. When you see the steering wheel icon right here, you know it's an autopilot. There it is. Okay, I want to see what this car does through the curves. And it did it. Look, we've got cruise control on, and it's doing it. But look at this corner. I am not ready for this car to steer itself around the corner. Will it do it? Nope, it won't. Yeah, there's still a few sharp corners that it doesn't like. So don't think that Autopilot has solved everything at this point, because cars are not autonomous right now. They are semi-autonomous. If you want the autonomy mode, it's $5,000, and if you want any future autonomous functions, you have to pay an extra $3,000 now up front before they're even announced.
We have to stop with the Tesla made a $35,000 car. It's not. You're gonna want the longer battery. Guess what? That's $9,000. You're gonna want the premium interior. That's another $5,000. You're gonna want the ability to have autopilot. Guess what? There's another $5,000 there. Once you put everything together, that honestly, these are all boxes you're gonna wanna check, suddenly it's a car that costs you nearly $60,000.
Once you start driving it like a normal car, that's where the Bolt shines.
The discussion with electric cars has always been range anxiety. I actually don't think that's right. I think that's a misunderstanding of the problem. The problem is not how much range do I have, it's how long does it take me to get my range back. I think most people would be fine with 100 miles worth of range if they could get that range back in 5 minutes. Electric cars aren't there yet, even if you're using a Tesla supercharger. Now, you can, of course, charge the Bolt at home at night. If you get the good, heavy-duty, big boy 240 charger, it'll take about 9 hours. If you charge it off a wall plug, it'll take 50.
But the best place to charge it is using the industry standard plug that is at most EVgo points. It'll give you 90 miles in about 30 minutes. Once you start driving it like a normal car and you use it without worrying about range, because you don't have to, that's where the Bolt shines. The Bolt is the car that most easily integrates into your life with the least hassle possible. This is the car you can have right now. There's no waiting, there's no putting your name on a list and $1,000 down. You can have this right now.
All of the future tech that you would get in a Model 3 is here in the Bolt, with the possible exception of autonomy, lane departure, intelligent cruise control, all sorts of cameras, including this rearview mirror. Now it's a camera that is a wider angle view than you're ever going to find on a rearview mirror with no obstructions of the seats. We can argue it's not as sexy. We can talk about the fact that Tesla has a reputation for being a futuristic brand. The future's in here too.
Elon's been a busy guy. He's distracted by, things like the boring tunnel, the underground tunnels to relieve traffic congestion, the Model Y, electric pickup trucks, electric semi-trucks, flying cars, the Hyperloop, solar tile panels on your roof, home batteries, wind farms, Australia's largest battery, the Gigafactory, interplanetary space travel, Mars missions, merging the human brain with AI, and flamethrowers.
Elon is crafting himself after the groundbreaking thinkers that we've had in the world. But I have to ask the question, is he Steve Jobs or is he Howard Hughes?
And that leads me to other features that you don't know about that might be hiding in this car. And it's an extra feature you have to pay for or that might come across later in a firmware update. There's functions hidden in here that might be available sometime in the future. They just haven't been turned on yet.
You can argue that's the future. Let's get downloads. All of our software gets updated automatically. Wouldn't it be cool if our cars are constantly being fixed? But here's the other side of that. If a car has to keep getting updated by the manufacturer, is that because that's the future and they're making it better? Or was it not good enough when it left the factory? GM's been making cars a long time. They are used to the car is done, it's finished, we've shaken it out. Teslas leave the factory with software thinking. Everything is a little bit in beta. In fact, some of the things in the menu say beta very prominently.
It's hard to compare anything to the Tesla because I don't want to say snobbery, but some owners have taken it that far. And I don't like that because there's many elements about the Bolt that feel just like the Model 3.
But there's nothing exciting about saying, I bought a Chevy. If you say to your friends, I bought a Tesla, they go, really? You say you bought a Chevy, they don't care.
Here's the thing about these cars. We're at a $35,000 price point.
Supposedly,
The
yes.
Bolt followed that model, but I think Tesla owners are like supercar owners. There are things about those cars that owners would just happily accept in order to own the car.
So they're willing to accept oddities. I think that's a great analogy in that regard. However, they're not having to deal with those really weird supercar things. This car just works.
Oh, it does.
This car is excellent. Both of these have accomplished the task of setting out to be an electric car that will impress you and do everything you need it to do.
Sure.
The only place, honestly, from a usability standpoint, I think this has over the Bolt isn't this car. It's the Tesla supercharger network.
Yes.
That actually makes this a road trip car in the way the Bolt isn't, but that's not the Bolt's fault. That's this company also doing superchargers.
Okay, so one company is a battery company that makes these things. They're on wheels, by the way. Another company is actually a car company. They're car people.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they built an electric car.
However,
Two divergent thoughts.
yes, however, one company is, it's the future. Have you heard about Tesla? They're awesome. The other company is a Chevy. So everybody kind of goes,
Yeah, but I'm still picking the Bolt because it's a car you can integrate into your life right now. You don't have to join the ecosystem and get the tattoo and, you know, I'm all in, Tesla, it's
Well, you
nothing.
don't have to wait. You can go buy one now, and that's a key thing. But the reason the Bolt wins for me is because of price. If we're talking about $35,000 cars, I hate to say it, this isn't. I like that this is rear-wheel drive. I prefer that about this car.
Fair.
The speed is amazing, but the way you want this car is nearly a $60,000 car. But look at it another way.
I agree.
Everything I really like about the Model 3 over the Bolt are things that make it $15,000 more expensive than the Bolt.
Well, the price is one thing, but I like in the Bolt, I forgot I was driving an electric car. I was just driving a great car, and then, oh yeah, right, I'm driving an electric car. It just worked right off the bat. I can integrate it into my life.
I see that. Unfortunately, the Bolt is tragically unattractive, and it has a Chevy badge on it.
All right.
Those are two big strikes against it. The Tesla Model 3, honestly, it lives up to the hype as being an amazing car. I cannot take that away from it.
As a car,
But we
yes.
need to die to the fact it's $35,000. If that's your point, this car's still a little out of range, but it's awesome, and so is the Bolt, and these are electric cars for everybody.
That's what I like about the Bolt the most. It's just car. It happens to be electric, and it integrates into your life rather easily, but it's just fun. It's got some personality to it.
It feels like a great city commute car, and yet it happens to also be electric. I'm a guy that loves gasoline. I'm a guy that loves manual transmissions. But you're doing stop and go in a city, you do it in a car like this that's well done and is electric, you just go, that's the answer.
I'm liking the Model 3 a lot. I'm not willing to pay a premium, and I'm not willing to wait though. Is it because it's the brand name? And I'm genuinely asking you, is it because it's the brand name that you want this car and you don't want a Chevy?
The Model 3 is genuinely impressive. However, it isn't the only player, and it isn't a $35,000 car.